I had this exercise that I love to do. It's every morning I get up and I look in the mirror and I'm staring at this 12-year-old girl in that mirror. And she looks back at me, Jamie, and she says, "Good morning, gorgeous. How are you today? Do you know what we get to go do today? We get to go lead other people." And she's a reminder of the life that I have, but also to the impact that I must make. If you don't look in the mirror and you don't see that person, you forget who you're becoming.
Well, Phyllis, it's great to have you here and back in LeaderPass. And you and I have a pretty rich history together.
We do, Jamie, we do.
We've been around each other a lot and been to some fun environments and been around some great people. But I'm glad to have you back. Glad to be spending time with you today and talk about leadership and what we've learned from different leaders in our life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, ironically, today is the day after the election. And, I was thinking about that when I was driving here today. And I was just thinking, as leaders today, what do we have to be today after such a historical election? And I thought about that. And, Jamie, there are people that are on, whether you're on the winning side or you're on the side that didn't win. I think leaders today have to find a way to win, even in the midst of a loss.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's difficult to do because we have to always remind ourselves that, um, you know, leaders have to lead even in chaos and turbulence and, the trials and tribulations that we have, not just in the workplace, but also too in our communities. And so, there's a lot of disappointed people. There's a lot of people that's celebrating. And so how do you balance that out as a leader? Because guess what? It's going to come into workplace.
Yeah.
It's going to come into your workplace today. I know in my organization, we've created healthy spaces as leaders. You have to think about that for people to be able to collaborate and have conversations that are healthy,
Hmm.
and that telling people that you can't talk about X and you can't talk about politics in the office. Those days are gone.
Hmm.
But I think what you can do is give people a safe place where they feel comfortable having a level of expression, but also to be respectful.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you may have one opinion of one way or the other of the outcome, but also you have to be in a place where you're authentic to who you are as a leader, but also to know that there may be something personal that you struggle with as a result. But always remember, and this is if I have any advice to give people today, is that find a way to win even in the midst of a loss.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That respect word, I think about you talking about the workplace isn't just the workplace anymore. It's not like there's a bubble around it and you only deal with issues internally at work. You are really bringing in world events. And I've heard you talk a
Absolutely.
lot about that, but that respect word is key
Yeah.
because we can disagree or we can look at things differently and we come from different backgrounds. But boy, I like that
Oh,
more of
yeah.
a humble, respectful approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, and leaders have to understand that too, is that have you created an environment, and this is a question you have to ask yourself as a leader, have you created an environment where people feel safe
Mm.
and they feel respected and they feel, cared for? And cared for means their physical well-being, their emotional well-being. Because if you look at the studies and all of the um, things that come out after every election, there are people that go through depression and all these things, and they bring that to work. So you say, well, what does election have anything to do with leadership? It has a lot, because leaders today don't have the option to tell people to check it at the front door.
Right.
That's just not an option, not in today's society.
Mhm.
So be thoughtful, be caring, be empathetic, but also find a way that everyone wins. And even in the midst of a loss, a leader has to tell himself that, this is an opportunity to bring people and unite people together.
How do you create that? Because I think about, um, how companies or organizations put their mission statement on the wall, or they put their values on their wall, or they have it printed out, or they hand it out. But I know you've talked a lot about it does begin with the leadership internally, like meaning your leaders in your company or your organization. It's not just a motto. It's not just, so how do you create that safe space? How do you,
Starts at the top,
Mhm.
but it is also to people see you lead by example,
Mhm.
right? And it's what you do as a leader. Like, and for example, we love this wall. It's called the Hall of Fame wall, right?
Okay.
And you can pin anything on that wall about anybody in the organization that you just feel like they deserve to be on this wall. Praise. People love praise, and people love that they matter. And you have to tell leaders that they matter. You have to you have to instill that into your leaders. And I think for me, I know over the years, from my time in the military, as hardcore as the military can be, I found that some of the greatest leaders in the military always gave you praise.
Really?
Always,
Okay.
even when you royally screwed up, and to have those leaders to say, you know what, Newhouse, you messed up on this, but here's what I want to tell you, you
Mm.
did something really great. And that inspired me to be better and to be better. And sometimes leaders focus on how people have messed up and they fail, and they don't focus on the growth that you have the opportunity to give somebody. And I say that you have the opportunity to give somebody the opportunity to grow.
That's great. I
Yeah.
know you talk about coaching moments, and it's
Yeah.
like, you and I, this was several years ago. I remember saying, Jamie, this is a coaching moment. This is a
Yeah.
coach. I got,
Yeah.
and that's a way for you to express that you care and that you're going to encourage that person, but also you're going to tell them the truth. And
Yeah.
it's not that you're giving them a pass on a mistake. You're not going to not acknowledge the mistake. You're just
Yeah.
allowing them to, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy, what's so funny? I was talking to national champion coach Don Staley.
Okay.
This was about a month ago. Like she's won the world national championship, and one of the things that she said to me, we were having this conversation about her expertise, and I was like, you're more than just a coach. You have so much to offer. You're such an amazing leader. And I was just really helping her understand her true identity
Mm.
wasn't just tied into being a coach. And I said to her, "Are you coachable?" Now I'm saying this to
To the winning
to
coach.
a
Yeah.
winning
Yeah.
coach. I'm asking her, "Are you coachable?" I think we have to always challenge ourselves to be coachable. No matter what level you are or you're at as a leader, are you still coachable? Right? I'm coachable, right? My son often sits down with me and he'll say, "Mom, let me teach you something." He'll say, "Did you know this? Have you read this? Hey, did you know?" And sometimes, like, I'll have to kinda sit back and says, "Wow, I'm glad I took the time to allow him to coach me
Mm.
through this," because and there was an opportunity for me to grow in that moment with just a little bit of coaching from someone who's, 28 years old.
And a
Yeah,
child. And your child.
and
Your
my
child.
child,
Yeah.
right. As a parent, I'm
Yeah.
now coachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so you've been around a lot of leaders. You've been around a lot of high performing, not just celebrities and athletes, but in business, military. Do you see that trait, or is that one of the top traits that you see, or is that rare? Because when we look at from the outside in, when I think coach, or I think people that are like you described the military, it's always the hammer. It's always this, you've got to drill it. But what do you see there?
You know, Jamie, so you're right. I've been around Hall of Famers. I've been around WNBA players, NBA player, Hall of Famers, all of that, generals, admirals, all of that, entrepreneurs. And when I think about the commonality that people who pride themselves on being great leaders, one of the things is that they're all still coachable.
Hmm.
I was talking to Michael Jordan, and I was talking to him about something in tech, and I was saying, "Hey, did you know you could do this?" And he's not a techie, and he said, "Wow, man, this is amazing. I love talking to you. Every time I talk to you, I learn something." I said, "That's because you're still coachable."
Hmm. Hmm.
This is Michael Jordan I'm talking to,
Yeah.
and he says, "Yeah, I always like to learn." He said, "I will never stop not being coachable."
Wow. Wow. So it's the true player
The
retain that even as at the status. Yeah,
100%.
that's amazing. I
100%.
love that. I love that. Right now we talk a little bit about, and you kind of addressed that a second ago. Resilience is really a required skill nowadays, or a leadership trait nowadays. And we've all had ups and downs. And I know you've had challenges that require you to bounce back. I think about, of course, the pandemic is an easy place to point to and go,
Yeah,
oh
for
my gosh,
sure.
what are some areas that you see right now, currently after, post pandemic? Where do you see that with either people you are a mentor of or in your own business, where that's needed, and how to do that? Like, how do you face that?
Whether you're coaching, advising, or mentoring, right? Because they're all very different. But through the process of me doing all three, with whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a coach, or those things, where I believe there's an opportunity for all of us, is that self-reflection.
Mm.
As the world changes, as you evolve as a leader, as your situation changes, I think there's an opportunity that we all have. if we were to do a little self-reflection of who we're becoming.
Mm,
Because every day I think we get to become something very different than yesterday.
mm.
If we would do self-reflection on the day before and the day before that and the day before. And oftentimes we wait too late to do self-reflection.
Okay.
And so when COVID happened, I did self-reflection. What do I want to learn as we're in the shut-in moment? What do I want to be, when we go back to the world? I said back to the world because it felt like the world was closed off. And I got an opportunity because I was willing to do self-reflection. I grew so much during that time
Mm.
when I felt isolated because it forced me
Force you to do it.
into go into my self-reflection mode.
Mhm.
And because I was willing to do that, I grew in so many areas of my life
Hmm.
not as a leader, as a mom, as CEO, in so many areas of my life, that self-reflection allowed me to reach deep in and say, who do you want to be and who are you becoming?
I like the becoming side because it's not who you are. It's who
Who
you're
you're
becoming.
becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at the levels you've succeeded in your business, and in the companies you've helped take public, and just to look at somebody who thinks I can still be better, I can still get better, I can still become something, and that
Right.
becoming process is it's active too. I love the active side of that, the energy that that
100%.
word brings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, Jimmy, I had this exercise that I love to do. And that exercise is every morning. I am intentional about this. Every morning I get up and I look in the mirror and I look in that mirror and I'm looking back and I'm staring at this 12-year-old girl in that mirror. And she looks back at me, Jamie, and she says to me, she says, Phyllis, good morning, gorgeous. Because she's a reminder to me of who I am internally and externally and how I see myself.
Hmm.
And she says, good morning, gorgeous. How are you today? Do you know what we get to go do today? And I said, no, tell me, Phyllis, what do we get to go do? She said, we get to go do a big job. We get to go lead other people. We get to go do this. And she's a reminder of the life that I have, but also to the impact that I must make. She's a reminder. And she tells me, do you know what you get to do? You have a big job to go do today. And so it's accountability because if you don't look in the mirror and you don't see that person, you forget who you're becoming.
Hmm.
And that's a reminder.
I love that. And I love how you flip that because when you describe that as a child, most of the questions you hear people get asked is, what would you tell your younger self? Like, meaning what would
Well, the
Phyllis
younger
now,
self
but
is telling me.
yeah, which I love.
Yeah,
So she's telling you and reminding you who you are and who you're becoming.
right.
I love
But
that.
the
Yeah.
12-year-old says to me too, Jamie, look at us. Look at what we're becoming. Aren't you proud of us?
Hmm.
Ah, she's also a reflection every day of who you're becoming, but she's also a reminder of what you thought you couldn't be.
Okay. The
She's a
self-doubt. She's a
reminder.
reminder of that.
She's
Okay.
a reminder.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That is great. So it's not just big events, big life events like what happened today or
Mm.
pandemic or any of that. It's every day you're doing that. That's
Oh, I'm
literally.
doing that every day. Yeah, I'm not leaving home without it.
Hmm.
Yeah, because guess what? If you and for me, if I don't do that every day, then the world tells me who I am.
Hmm. And that's
I
the
need
truth.
to tell myself who I am before the world does.
Hmm.
And if leaders look at the way nobody can tell you who you are as a leader until you say it first. I'm courageous. I'm outrageous. I'm intelligent. I'm smart. I'm empathetic. Those are the things you must tell yourself first, because if you don't, people will start defining who you are as a leader and you will believe that.
So it's not that you're bragging or touting. It's literally a self-programming almost.
Oh,
It's
yeah. It's like your own internal operating system.
Hmm.
Like just like an iPhone, it has an internal operating system, and you have to know how do you operate internally?
Yeah.
Like, are you really that courageous? Are you that contagious? Are you really that intelligent? Or you have to know what your operating system, what moves you, how do you move throughout life and as a leader and as a parent and as all of these things. If you don't know your operating system and what that's made of, It's very difficult to do.
Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that from somebody or just reading or
Well,
where was that?
I grew up hard knocks in a family with 11 kids. So your voice had to be loud and you had to think quick on your feet and because you got left behind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and there was no whining because you got left behind. You just didn't. I remember one time my dad said, I want you to tell me why, give me two things you're grateful for. We had to start with gratitude
Okay.
first. So you learn to be very appreciative of other people. And then you had to say what you were grateful for. But then you had to find two people at that dinner table and you had to say what you were most grateful
Siblings?
about
You had to say
them.
that about them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby.
Because you know what it did? It kept us from fighting about the things that really didn't matter.
Mm.
And that he always used to say, live today as if today was your last day.
Mm.
Have no regrets in life and have no regrets for the people that you say you love.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was little, and I remember every morning I used to wake up, and I was, I'm number 10, and I had six sisters, and I remember my mother used to say, "Tell your sister good morning, beautiful." That's where I get that from. I say, "Good morning, gorgeous. Good morning, beautiful." My son says it too, and to me, and I'll say, "Good morning, handsome." And my mother had this thing about share and compliment other people, and when you start to compliment other people, it makes you feel good in the inside,
Mhm.
and then you look good on the outside,
Okay.
right?
So it reflects.
And so for me, I remember one time, I was so mad at my sister. My mother said, "Go in there and you tell her good morning, gorgeous." I said, "Well, she's not gorgeous. She doesn't look gorgeous." She said, "I don't care what she looks like on the outside. I want you to tell her how gorgeous she is in the inside."
That's awesome.
And so for me, I never forgot that because I always thought about the words have power, and my mom used to say powerful words to people, and that empowers them.
Mm. Your mom's still living.
Yeah, she's
She's
93.
she's still kicking.
Yeah, oh, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, every moment that I get to sit with her and I ask questions and just I said this to her this weekend. I said, "Wow, if I had half the wisdom and the strength and the energy, mental energy that she has," I said, "if I just get half of that, man, I said I'm just going to be on fire when I'm 93." And she goes, "Well, I've given you everything you need to be what you need to be."
There you have it.
That was from her.
I love that. I love that. So Phyllis, you have this ROC
Yeah.
method and
Mhm.
way of looking at life and business. Let's talk
Mhm.
about that for a second. What does it
Yeah.
stand for?
When I was in the military, I actually just really taught myself this method. I remember my first assignment, I got to one of the assignments in Europe. I got to Stuttgart, Germany, and it was we used to call this the high brass area. Everybody was important in this command. You had the generals and the admirals and all the foreign dignitaries. Everybody was stationed at this one particular base. So if you were low on the totem pole, you were definitely not noticed and you didn't stand out because everybody was jockeying to please the higher ups. So I remember having a conversation with a female general, and she said to me, she said, "If you want to get noticed, you better find a way to stand out."
Okay.
She go, or you're going to get left behind. And so she said, take an inventory of what you have and what you don't have and find a way to go get it. And so I went back to when I was a young girl, and my father, when I left to go in the military, my dad said, everybody has rocks in life. Make sure you give them away because that's the only way they'll come back. And he was talking about everybody has rocks. We all have resources that we can give someone that's game over, life changing.
Mm.
We all have opportunities. Sometimes people just need that one opportunity. Have you ever heard people say, "Man, if I could just get that
Yeah, yeah.
opportunity, they just got the opportunity to get this job. I'll show them who I am." And that could be life changing for them. And then the connection. Sometimes people just need the dots connected. They don't want a handout. They just want you to connect the dots for them.
Mm.
So, as leaders, Jamie, I believe that we have to inventory our rocks, our opportunities, and our connections. And we
So our
find
resources,
resources,
opportunities.
opportunities, connections, your rock. And you take that and you say, once you've done your inventory, who do I know? And then what do I have? That's the opportunities and resources that I'm talking about. And then how do I use my rocks to impact the lives of other people?
Mm.
How do I use my rocks to change a situation? How do I take everything that I own, and these are your assets,
Mhm.
your resources, opportunities, and connections. How do I give this away? And who do I give them to? And as leaders, think about in your organization. Someone says, man, if I just had this one connection, this could change this whole program that we're doing.
Mm.
I just need a connection. And sometimes we don't know, we don't do an inventory, so we don't know what we need. So I'm going to tell you how this works. So I was looking at buying a professional sports team. And so I reached out I was just having this conversation with professional athlete Marcus Allen. And Marcus Allen said to me, oh, this is how I met Michael Jordan. It was Marcus Allen said, oh, yeah, I know MJ. I could reach out to him for you. And I said, oh, you know him? He goes, oh, yeah, I know him really well. And so he said, I'll get him on the phone. And through that connection, I mean, think the odds of me getting connected to him without asking.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, would you be willing to make a connection with us? He said, sure, I'll be able to do that. So I get on the phone with him and we're having this conversation with Michael Jordan. And hey, do you know so and so? Oh, yeah. I'll be willing to connect you. And so sometimes we don't ask for what we need because we don't do an inventory of what we don't
To know
have.
what you need.
Yeah, you got to know what you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
And this is a powerful question. I want you to ask any person this question. If you ask a person, how can I support you? If you ever ask me that question, I'm either going to ask you for a resource, opportunity, or connection.
Okay. Yeah.
And so remember that. How can I support you? It's either a resource or an opportunity or connection that you need.
Mm.
If you're trying to move a project ahead and you're on a team, you might need a resource that you don't have. But if you don't ask the leaders to give you that resource, that project is never going to get off the ground. It's never going to launch.
Mm.
What if you just need an opportunity? Sometimes doors close and we don't know how to open new doors because we don't have the connection. Connections and opportunities work together.
Yeah.
How many people have gotten jobs because they were really connected? And there is a difference. Jamie, have challenged people on that to ask themselves this question, especially entrepreneurs. Are you connected or powerfully connected? What's the difference?
Okay. So either connected or are you powerfully connected?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the difference?
I would imagine that the powerfully connected is obviously who you're connected to, but it's also bringing those resources, opportunities to the table through that connection.
See, one would think that. No, I believe this. I believe that if you are connected, you know a lot of people. You're in the mix, you're in the vibe, you know a lot. However, powerfully connected people use the connections that they have to create change in the lives of other people.
Okay.
Picking up that phone to say, your mom's sick? Let me reach out to my friend who's an orthopedic surgeon and have her call you so that she can break down to you what's needed. You see, that's powerfully connected.
Yep.
You're doing something that's creating change, that's impacting the lives of other people.
Yep.
That's a powerfully connected. They're willing to leverage.
Yeah. We have a tendency also, and I've got a question about that. And that is, do you have to be a certain status or a certain success to have ROC? Do you have to have a certain status in life, or are you saying every single person, even if they're not there yet?
Jamie, I had the rock when I was in the second grade. Let me tell you something.
You were taught that early. Yeah.
Because I do believe that some people are just naturally gifted. They're just naturally gifted, and they recognize the inventory that they have at a young age. I'm grateful to God that I was one of those people that recognized that. I remember rallying up the students when I was in the sixth grade, and I didn't like the fact that one thing with this teacher, she used to shut down the windows, lock the doors, and we was like it was towards the end of the school, open up these windows, let us breathe. And so I said, we're going to protest this teacher. We're not going to pull out our books. And I got all these students to agree to do this. And I said, and until she changed this dumb rule that she has, right? I was in the sixth grade, and I realized the power and the influence that I had to create change, to get all these students to rally up and to use those connections and say, okay, and believe it or not, it was just something so simple. So I realized that I was one of those students that was connected to everyone. And guess what? A lot of the students didn't look like me. They didn't come from the same background, but you find the commonality in what people are, what they care about.
Hmm.
And then you bring those people together, and then now you're connected. And someone would say, well, I don't know those people in that neighborhood. How do you know all those people in that neighborhood? Because I went over there.
Yeah.
I went to the neighborhood. I wanted to be a part of that neighborhood, even though I didn't live there. And then I started the connection. And sometimes I think we're so afraid to connect with people that we differ from.
Mm.
I think that's a strong suit that you have in you if you're willing to take a leap.
It's amazing. And it's a way to look at life. The way you describe that is like, if you're waking up every day and you're looking for ways you can be powerfully connected, to use your rock to empower or help others change or help improve other people's situations.
Improve their situation.
That's a way to look at life.
Yeah.
That's really your,
Oh,
yeah.
it's powerful. It is so powerful. And when you do it and you do it well, you start, it becomes, it just becomes effortlessly
Mhm.
to do it. It becomes very, you do it with little to no effort,
Mhm.
because it's like, hey, I wake up in the morning. It's like, who do I got so many rocks to give away today? Who do I want to give these rocks to? Who needs a resource today? And so when someone walks up to you and they say, yeah, I've been working on this thing. Oh, you know what? I know the right person. I'll be willing to make a phone call for you.
Mm.
And why don't you share your email? I can't tell you how I practice this every day.
And you're ready at all times.
I'm ready at all
You're
times
looking for it.
because I know the inventory. You got to know the inventory. What do you have and what don't you have?
So, something very hard to do if you're leading a company at times, especially because you probably got there from, your own pulling up the straps and going after it, making it happen yourself. But a tough one is delegation. I think about the difficulty sometimes people have in delegating and trusting others to follow through.
Mhm.
How have you approached that? How do you look at that? What's your lens that you look through when you think about delegation?
Yeah. So, Jamie, when I was in the military, we had this thing that you can tell where you're leading from based off the things you do.
Mm.
So if I'm doing a task that someone below me, a manager should be doing, and if I'm saying, well, I'll just go ahead and do it, then I'm operating 2 levels below where I should be as a leader,
Mm.
right? So think about the tasks that you do every day. Are those tasks that you should be doing? Because we say, let's not work in the organization. Let's work on the organizations. Leaders work on the organizations, not in the organizations. And when you're in the organization, you tend to micromanage. You tend to, to be involved in things that you should delegate. Delegation is like, if you're 2 levels below, then you need to be delegating. If you're 1 level below, maybe that you have a gap. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a skill set gap. Maybe that. But there should not be a gap 2 levels below. And you have to kind of ask, by the things that I'm doing, should I delegate this? Is this really something? And it's not about being at that level, because a lot of times you hear people say, well, I'm at my level, I shouldn't be doing that.
Mhm.
You do it if you have to.
Mhm.
But if you are delegating, then you're delegating for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm delegating because, this is really a level where I want you to grow.
Yeah.
You delegate
Yeah.
for growth. You delegate because you are coaching, or you're advising, or you're mentoring. Those are the opportunities that you say, I'm going to take this off my hand. I'm going to now give you the responsibility to do it. Now, I'm going to guide you through it if you need my support on this, but I'm going to trust that you can get this done.
Yeah.
And you let that go. Now you're working as a leader and not trying to work in the organization and not be the leader.
Yeah. And it's like almost like you're robbing them of an opportunity to grow and to learn.
100%.
So it's
when you don't
instead of-
delegate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often call this, I say, you know what? I don't want to be the leader with founderitis.
Founderitis.
Founderitis. These are the people that they will never leave the job. They always they can't commit to staying or going a lot of times. And so you have to be careful that you don't have founderitis, that you birthed this thing and you don't want to let it go, and you don't want nobody to own it, and you just want ownership forever.
Mm.
And you can't be that type of leader, because you don't give others the opportunity to grow when you do that.
Right. That's right. And that's fantastic. The rock, how would that apply when you think about, what you're bringing into your organization, ROC, and delegation, getting them to think that way? I guess that's also modeling for them on what they will eventually need to do as they grow as leaders.
Right, right. And teaching people the rock method really works well when you are coaching and advising and mentoring because you're saying, what's your inventory? Who are you connected to? I want you to, if you told the average person, write down um, 5 of your most powerful connections.
Hmm.
I want you to give me 5 people on your list today, and I want you to tell me why they're so powerful. And then you say, okay, I want you to reach out to each one of those people that's on your list, and I want them to tell you who the 5 that they have that are most
Okay.
powerful. And then I want you to ask them to make introductions to their most powerful people in their group. Look what you just did. You just expanded your network.
Yeah.
Your amazing network that becomes a powerful network because you're saying, introduce me to someone that's impacted your life and would be willing to change the lives of other people. That's a very different question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
It's like, who do you know that I need to know? I remember John Maxwell talked about how good leaders ask great questions. And that was one of those questions that he always ended a conversation with, hey, who do you know that I need to know?
Right.
Now that you know what I do or what my,
Right.
to use your words, the rocks that I've got, rocks you've got, who do you know that I need to know?
Yeah.
Which you're a
Yeah.
master at that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're able to do that and you're adding value to people along the way. It's
Right.
not like you're using somebody.
No,
to get
no,
to the
you're
next.
adding value. And then, I would say I spent a whole day or 2 days with Dr. J, famous Hall of Famer basketball player, spent time with him. And we were traveling together and we were actually speaking on the stage together. And I remember when he goes, wow, why does it feel like we've known each other all our lives? And because I was invested in him in that moment that I got an opportunity to spend time with him. It wasn't about, being around this famous person. It was like, I want to get in the core of your soul and find out what's in there. And I told him that. And he said, whoa, that's a little scary. I said, no, because you and I align on so many things. And I want to go through a discovery on that. I want to discover that with you.
Hmm.
And so we started talking about our family. And oh my God, we were so aligned. We started talking about our children, so aligned. We start talking about life and our faith and all these things that we became so aligned. So instantly, I knew that he would be a person that I could call and say, Dr. J, I need your support on something. Because I found the alignment and the commonality in the things that matter to us the most. So when leaders come together, it is an opportunity to find the alignment on where you do good.
I love that. And it reminds me of once you know someone's story, and I've heard you say this, it's easier to have empathy. It's
100%.
easier to understand what their needs are or where that's alignment or where you can support them. But that empathy comes from the story.
Yeah.
From knowing those. Now, it's from the outside looking in when you say Dr. J, you say Michael Jordan. I'm a huge basketball fan, love them. Anybody's going to be like, yeah, let's find a way to align with these guys. But you do that with normal
anybody.
people, right?
Yeah.
Anybody. Yeah.
And anyone. And you got to remember, when you're dealing with celebrities and, famous people, they're looking at, oftentimes where's this person come? What do they want from me?
Yeah.
And the thing about, I think you could do this with anyone is that, look, I don't need anything from, there's nothing you could do for me, but here's what we could do together. I want to get to know who you are. I remember telling Michael Jordan this. I said, listen, you and I are never going to play basketball together, so let's scratch that idea. I said, but how about we find a way to win together?
Yeah.
That's what I said to him. I said, how do we find a way to win together? I said, there's so many things that you and I, our families, our, community, all these things that we align on. I want to find a way that we win together. And that's a very different conversation that you can have with somebody who you say, well, and I don't like to use this thing, I'm not at his level. And so if you're thinking right now, somebody's not at your level, I want you to change your mindset on that. We were born at the same level. Only you have decided that you're not at the level of someone else. The moment that you walk in any room, and this is what makes you comfortable to walk in any room and know that you're supposed to be there. You see, I don't get caught up with, as a leader, how many rooms I've walked in, Jamie, and people didn't think I was the CEO because I was African American, I was a woman, I was whatever, right? The only. I think there's power in being the only, but you've got to exercise that right of being the only because you have the power of being the only. Exercise the right and see what the outcome would be. you have an opportunity to change the perspective of the people who are not you.
Mm-hmm.
I rather you see me. I want you to see who I am. And how can you see me, Jamie, if I don't tell you? That's my job. My job is to tell you who I am. Jamie, let me tell you who I am as a leader. Let me tell you who I am as a friend. And so sometimes we're so caught up into the identity of by what we do versus who we are.
Mm.
I want to start with who I am first as a leader. Then you will not have to guess the type of leader I am based off of who I am.
Right. So you're not leading with the title, if you will. You're leading
No,
with who you are.
no.
I remember you talking about even the words you used when you first, this may have been months ago, we were talking about you were talking to Zeke. No, you were talking to your son.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, you walking into the room, maybe the youngest at this financial meeting or whatever it was,
Yes.
but it's a privilege to walk in and be the only. And maybe you are the youngest. Maybe you are, in this scenario, different or one of one.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Jamie, there was a part two to that story. So we were going to an event, and I said to him, because I knew, he didn't really want to go, he was kind of tagging that night. He was like, I said, listen, this is going to be a powerful event, and I want you to understand you're going to be the youngest person in this room, probably. But boy, there's so much power you're going to have. You're going to have more power than I have going into the room. He said, I am? I said, yeah. Everybody's going to come up to you and say, how old are you? You look like you're in high school. You with your mom? I said, but don't fall into that trap. I want you to recognize that because you're going to probably be one of the youngest people in the room, and that you are going to have a perspective that most of the older people are not going to
That's
have.
right.
So Nick Saban was there. So he says, oh, Mom, it's Nick Saban. I said, well, let's go over and chat with him and get a photograph with him. So he walks up to Nick Saban. Nick Saban says, how old are you? Are you draft? Or he was but basically want to know if he was college material. He said, you play football?
Yeah.
He said, oh, well, those days are long gone, Coach Saban. He said, you're out of high school? He said, yeah, I'm out of college.
Mhm.
And so he says, oh, he goes, I had a different conversation, but now, he started talking to him. He said, man, this is powerful that you come to an event. He said, it's a bunch of old fogies in the room and you're here. He said, man, you must feel real special being, getting to take all this in. He said, I do. And I appreciate it. And I'm grateful this opportunity that I get to learn from people like you guys. And so in that moment, for him, he realized what people see, and that their thought was, why are you so young in this room with all these people? And if he had gone in with that mindset, he would have sat off in the corner. But he embraced every conversation with enthusiasm. And he was excited to kind of share that I am the youngest, because he saw the power in being the youngest person.
Being the only.
Yeah.
It's great. So think about all these rooms you've walked into
Mhm.
and some pretty high profile scenarios, people that we may never have heard of or people that we have, but also the power of a network and the power of, meeting people through meeting people we've talked about. So when you think about that as a leader, how do you view what it means to network, what it means to look for those opportunities to network, and what makes them powerful?
Yeah. So if Jamie, if I were talking to the world today, and especially people who are starting their career, people who are transitioning from a career, I would say, don't say I'm networking.
Okay.
That's old school.
It's old school.
I used to network, but I would say to people today, I I'm going to this event to get connected.
Mm.
You see the difference? Network says, "Hey, here's my business card. Are you on LinkedIn?" That's networking.
Mhm.
Connect, it's like, so tell me who are you? Oh, blah, 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 blah. So now you find out what the person does. You say, look, I would love for you and I to be connected. I want to be connected to you in a way because I believe that we can do some really good things together. You see, networking doesn't suggest that you'll go to these events, you'll meet 50 people and one connection.
Yeah.
I don't go, I tell people in my organization, you go to this event to get connected.
Mhm.
How many people did you actually connect with? Because you're going to network with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go with the intentions of being connected to someone. I got connected to Jamie Minton, and boy, was it fantastic to get connected to him.
Mhm.
Because connection builds a bond. Connection builds a lasting relationship. that's going to last. It's meaningful. You have purpose behind that. So when you go there with the intentions of being purposeful, being meaningful, it's something lasting, something that's going to, really pan out to be impactful, then you have a different mindset. You're going to go there and you ain't going to play around.
Right.
You're not going to be trying to work the room. You're going to say, I'm here to get connected to 5 people.
Yeah.
Once I hit my 5, I'm going to go for 6.
And that connection is like plugging in versus this picture in my head of just being transactional and moving from one thing to the next. You're looking to plug in. Where can I make my connection?
Yeah, because guess what has to happen? When you walk up to someone at an event, hey, what drove you here, Jamie? Why are you here? Oh, I'm just networking. I'm moving.
Yeah.
I'm going to the next person because this guy just wants to meet a whole bunch of people with no purpose. So I say, you know what? Hey, I'm here because I want to get connected. So tell me a little bit about who you are. And then all of a sudden, you're into a real conversation. And it's not just the surface stuff you do when you're networking. So change your approach and see how powerfully connected you will be when you're intentional about getting connected.
So when you think about mentoring others, especially as they've transitioned, we talked about military, we talked about sports, that's a big deal. Careers, I mean, completely pivoting and changing. When you think about that, how do you help people understand the value of still having a vision for their life or for what they do? And then how to bring people into that vision.
And we talk about the pandemic and all the things that happened, and people had to pivot their job that they once had. There's just so many things that happened that people had to decide whether or not they were going to stay stuck or move on, right? And so I think it starts with self-reflection. It's like looking within, who do I want to be, and and what are the steps to become that? Right? You have to do that because what often happens is that you get lost on your own journey. And sometimes it's like, have you ever been, and I describe careers and personal lives, they work hand in hand together. They go hand in hand. You can't separate one without the other. If you're lost personally, you're most often lost professionally, right? Or if your professional life is not on point, your personal life is going to be a little bit off. And how do you get the two to align is having some core principles and values that bring those two worlds together where they don't contradict. Because how can you go to work and you're so happy and then you say, oh my God, my home life is just miserable. Then you're most likely you're suffering at work too. You're just in denial, right? And so one of the things that I always say is like when you sit down with self and you say, what are the things that matter to me the most personally and professionally? See where there's an alignment. Because oftentimes when it's time to transition to something new, we know it because we feel it personally first. Because I gotta go to this, I gotta go grind, I gotta go get there. Because you're losing the passion. How do you know you're losing the passion for a job that you say you love, right? You hate going there, right? How do you know that it's time to switch gears in terms of your career? Because you're not developing yourself anymore. You're just going with it every day. And so I even said this to my son. I said, have you changed on who you want to be and what you want to become? And he goes, why do you ask that question? I said, why aren't you asking the question? I said, because if you can't answer that, you can't say, you know what, last year I wanted to be this, but I'm not totally there. Why not? Why?
To question that.
Yeah, you have to question that. And it starts with asking yourself these really hard questions. It's like, I've transitioned into so many things. And when I get into this new thing that I'm becoming, I get so passionate about this thing. Like, oh, I get to be this. And I get passionate about it. And then if I don't like being something, I decided I'm not going to be that anymore. And I go become something else.
Right.
And but that's because I'm in touch with self. I self-reflect.
So you know your values. Do you find yourself taking, even if it's a completely different opportunity that you're going into, just talk business for a second, do you find yourself keeping those similar values into the next thing and just having a different way of a different mission around those, or what?
Different outlook? It's like it's like what you did here is not the same as what you're going to do here. It's going to be very different, right? And it's what did you love from what you are doing before that you want to carry forward, and what is it that you want to leave behind? And then you say, you know what? I was a workaholic in that last job. I don't want to spend so much time at work. I want to have a little bit more balance because my personal life, it was a lot of strain there.
Mm,
And leaders have to face this all the time,
sure.
Jamie, because you're it's not a 9 to 5 if you're an entrepreneur. Um, if you are a leader in an organization that's very demanding, if you're in a job where you're constantly having to evolve and learn new things all the time, and sometimes it could be, it could be a lot,
Mhm.
and emotionally and physically. And so what happens oftentimes is that something starts to suffer and something starts to break down. And if you're not the type of person that does that inventory that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and that that self-reflection, and start asking yourself these hard questions, is like you'll find yourself on a journey where you're lost,
Mm.
and you're like, man, and I describe this of being lost as a leader because I've been there too. And I remember one time it's almost like driving a car, and you go the same way every day, and then you're going down this road, and then all of a sudden you get to a detour. They blocked off the whole street, and you're mad, and you say, "What the heck? Why is the street closed?" And you sit there and ponder on why the street is closed versus just, "Hey, Phyllis, it's a detour. Go another way."
Find a different way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just go another way. You spent too much time fussing over the roadblock
Mhm.
that you didn't pivot quick enough to go another way.
Mhm.
And if you'd gone another way, you'd have got home on time.
Mhm.
But because you wanted to go through a roadblock that told you couldn't go through it, and now you're delayed. So that happens in our career sometimes, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it happens as leader. Here's another one. Have you ever been driving down the highway, and all of a sudden there's a big old tire thing that fell off a truck in the middle of the road? You're not gonna go take your car and just
Run
go
over it.
through it.
Right.
You're gonna go around it. That's life. That's your career. Sometimes you just gotta go around it.
Mm.
You gotta find that obstacle you just hit. You just hit a bump in the road in your career. And instead of you're trying to go straight through it, and you're tearing up everything,
Mhm.
even yourself. Mentally tearing yourself up. Go around it. Guess what? On the other side of it, you can keep going, but you gotta go around it first.
Mhm.
And the last thing I'll tell you is the disappointment. "Ah, I'm going down 75 and the traffic is insane. Where in the world did all this traffic come from on the day that I don't need it?" Disappointed. Something didn't go your way. You didn't win. You didn't get it. You didn't get the promotion. The team didn't deliver. One of your executives quit. You're so disappointed. You can't get over the disappointment, so you can't get on with it.
Mhm. So it literally holds you back
Yeah,
just
it's
because you're
called the
disappointed.
Valley of the Three Ds: detours, distractions, and disappointment.
Mm.
If you stay there too long, you'll forget the opportunity was on the other side.
Mm. Love it. So do you believe there's always another way? Do you believe there's always options?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if the road is blocked, you're not going that way today. So what other options do you have? Your navigation system is going to keep rerouting you till you go another way, right? And that's what I believe, that sometimes our navigation system saying reroute, reroute, and we hear the sign, but we still keep going the wrong way.
Mhm.
What's your navigation system telling you? It's time to go another way.
Mm. Love that. So when you talk about these pivots in life and these transitions to either new career, athletics to business, or to just a whole new life from military, I've heard you talk about what are you leaving behind as far as your legacy goes, and
Mhm,
that's even when you quit or you leave a job, the way you
mhm.
were describing it. Talk about that for a second. What does that mean when
Yeah.
you're in this journey or you're leaving? What kind of legacy are you leaving?
Yeah, I think all of us have something we can leave behind that will impact the lives of other people, and people will remember, and people will be inspired by, because of the way you led and the impact you made on the lives of other people. I think a lot of times when we go into career fairs or jobs, and we're in leadership roles, that if we say, what is it that I want to give people that when I leave this job, they're going to remember, and it's going to keep the organization moving forward. It's going to change the lives of people. It's going to make them a better leader. It's going to make this a better community. It's going to make this a better country. All those things. I think we have a responsibility when we're placed in a position to lead, that we think about the legacy we leave behind for those that will be leading after us,
Mm.
right? And so for me, that's legacy leadership. Legacy leadership is not something I think you teach, but it's something that you become. You become a legacy leader by the way you lead, because all of us are different leaders in our way. You know what? I could be the empathetic leader that just really was passionate and I cared about people. And people will say, oh my God, boy, she cared about them. And she started a new healthcare program that changed the lives of people who really needed this. Or, just think about programs that we start. I want to be a person remembered for, how we treat our veterans, right? And so in every organization I've ever been involved with, I talk about not letting that particular subset of employees become invisible. Like, know that there are veterans deserve the opportunity to be heard, their voices. And there are sometimes in organizations we don't understand that community.
Mm.
Leaders have to do a better job and say, "Oh wow, you know what? I know there might be people that have PTSD in my organization, so I'm going to create a program, and we're going to let the veterans know in my organization that they mean something, not just on Veterans Day, but all." That's a legacy leader. People will remember that because that program will go on and on and on for many years. And when veterans come into the organization, yeah, the Tom something so program, man, they've done a lot. I love what they do in the community for veterans. You see, you're gone 10 years from now and they're still serving veterans in communities because of a program you started, legacy leadership.
Mhm. Could that even apply at just a normal worker at the job who's going to get promoted or leave the company?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think about this when in my organization, we had a young person who truly believed in community service. And so she found this shelter that she had visited herself. And she came back to the organization. She said, Miss Newhouse, this is one thing that I think we should do. And if you just went down and took a visit, I would just ask you to come and visit. So I decided to go, and I just said, I'm going to go visit this organization. And I went down to visit that organization. And so we made a commitment that every year we were going to not just give money, but we were going to go serve this community. We were going to have workers that signed up to be there and I mean, these are families that are displaced.
Okay.
And some of them, with children, that 3 or 4 children living in a center, and so they don't have a lot of resources and they don't have the opportunities and the connections. So that rock really matters here. And so when she left the company, we named the program after her because she was the one who started that program, and that was as an employee who took another job somewhere else.
Okay.
And we still named that program, was named after her. And to this day, people would say, oh yeah, I'm a part of that program. And and even to me, that's a legacy leader who was thoughtful and kind enough to say, your mission statement is about serving the community. Here's a way we can serve. And I think not only will they be appreciative, but it will give us much gratitude to do that.
When most people are leaving a job or leaving a coaching position or leaving some of, even the smallest to the largest positions at a company or organization, there's a side of them that is, well, I want to have done such a good job that nobody can replace me, or that my shoes are too big to be filled and they'll feel me when I'm gone. But what you've done is flip that. You've made that about what can you make that next person coming in's job easier, that they can build upon what you did, versus like, look at the gap I left. And
Yeah,
the company's gonna suffer.
100%.
That's a totally different way of looking at it.
Oh, it's a totally different way of looking at it. But also too, what you're doing is like, hey, I want to build you guys. I want to build you up. So when I'm gone, you can build on top of this and bring all of your leadership skill sets, experiences into what we have already built. But it's collaborative too. Legacy leadership is collaborative.
Hmm.
It is getting the buy-in and getting people to buy into what you're doing and who you're becoming, right? Because when you're gone, it's like, oh man, you know what? Jamie started this program. If it weren't for Jamie, we wouldn't. And we look at how we've enhanced this program, and somebody else comes in, they build on top of what you've done. But the foundation was the legacy you left behind.
I love that. Well, Phyllis, it's been awesome having you talk about leadership. We can go on and on. In fact, I think we should keep doing this. I think we should do it again.
I think
if you
so.
agree.
I want to take this show on the road with you, James.
Let's do it. So many rich experiences and so much important practical advice that people need, especially during these times, like we talked about earlier. And then also how to leave this legacy, which I think is just missing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you and all that you've done, and can't wait to have you back.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, up high. We doing up high?
Yep. All right.